The siren sliced through the golden calm of a California afternoon, as Rookie Officer Ethan Cole brought his cruiser to a sharp stop in the middle of an empty 4-lane highway. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. It was only his 3rd month on the force. 3 months spent trying to prove he was worthy of the badge his late father had once worn. His father had been killed in uniform, gunned down during a routine traffic stop gone wrong. Since that day, Ethan had sworn he'd never freeze, never falter, never fail. But as the sunlight glinted off the chrome of the Harley he just pulled over, something inside him twisted. This didn't feel like an ordinary stop. The man standing beside the motorcycle wasn't nervous, hostile, or even defensive. He was calm, too calm. A towering figure, muscles carved by years of hard living, tattoos faded by the sun. He wore a black leather vest with the words Hell's Angels stitched across the front. Silver threaded his beard, and his steady eyes carried the quiet of a man who'd seen wars both inside and out. His wrists were already cuffed, yet his gaze wasn't angry. It was heavy, with pity almost, as if he felt sorry for the young cop who had just arrested him. Ethan's radio crackled faintly in the background, while a soft breeze tugged at an American flag hanging from a distant gas station. And deep down, beneath the weight of adrenaline and duty, Ethan knew something was wrong. This wasn't their suspect. The real fugitive had fled hours ago, last seen in a similar vest. But Ethan's instincts, blurred by fear and the hunger to prove himself, had taken over. He thought he was being a good cop. Instead, he had just cuffed the wrong man. If you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness, because what happened next changed 2 lives forever. The biker's name was Ray Dalton, though his vest patch read RLDHLs. For 20 years, he'd ridden with the Angels, not for rebellion or violence, but because it was the only family he had left. A combat veteran, Ray had lost both brothers in the line of duty overseas. When he came home, he found an America that had moved on without him. The open road became his therapy. The club, his brothers, the motorcycle, his prayer. Now, standing in cuffs, he looked at the young officer before him, a trembling kid barely older than his own son would have been, and saw not arrogance, but uncertainty. Ethan led him toward the cruiser, voice cracking as he read the Miranda rights. Around them, the day looked too peaceful for what was happening. Clear blue sky, birds gliding overhead, a few cars slowing to film. The flashing red and blue lights made it look like a triumph, but inside Ethan felt nothing but regret. Ray didn't resist. He didn't even speak. And that silence was unbearable. Why isn't he fighting back? Ethan thought. Why isn't he angry? Then came the sound, a low, distant rumble that grew like thunder. The ground began to tremble. Over the horizon, motorcycles appeared, dozens, then hundreds, black dots swelling into a wave of chrome and leather. The roar built until it filled the air like a heartbeat. They weren't speeding. They moved as one, a brotherhood approaching with purpose. Within moments, the highway was lined end to end with Hell's Angels, parking their bikes in perfect formation behind Ray. The engines idled in unison, a deep, steady rhythm that spoke louder than any words. Ray looked over his shoulder, eyes softening. "They came for me," he murmured, not with pride but with recognition. Ethan's knees weakened. He wasn't staring at criminals anymore. He was facing loyalty, forged in loss, pain, and code, and he'd just broken that code without realizing it. For the first time since his father's death, Ethan felt small, not powerless, but human. The badge on his chest suddenly weighed more than the gun at his hip. He remembered his father's words, "Courage isn't in the arrest, son. It's in knowing when to let go." But fear was louder than memory. Ethan reached for his radio, ready to call for backup, until Ray lifted his cuffed hands slightly and spoke in a calm, almost tender voice. "It's okay, kid. We all make mistakes." Ethan froze. There was no anger in Ray's tone, only truth. The veteran stood still while his brothers watched in silence. The dispatch crackled for updates, but Ethan couldn't respond. He just stared at the glinting silver cuffs and the innocent man they bound. Something inside him shifted. With trembling hands he reached down and unlocked the cuffs. The click of metal opening sounded like forgiveness. Ray didn't smile. He simply nodded. A quiet exchange between 2 men who understood pain in different languages. Then he turned to the sea of bikers and raised one hand. One by one, the engines went silent. The highway fell still. The sunlight bathed everything in a golden hush. The quiet that followed was heavier than thunder. Ray looked back once more, not with anger but with understanding, then mounted his bike and rolled away. The Angels followed, their engines rumbling to life in a symphony of brotherhood that echoed across the empty road. Ethan stood beside his cruiser, motionless, the wind lifting dust around his boots. He unclipped his radio, switched it off, and dropped to his knees. His hands buried in his hair, not from fear but realization. For the first time, he truly saw beyond the badge, beyond the leather, beyond the noise. From that day forward, every stop, every decision, every uniformed hour carried the echo of that moment, the mistake that taught him compassion. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness, where every tale reminds us that empathy can rewrite even the hardest chapters. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Ethan's place? Because as the sun dipped low that evening, a rookie cop watched 100 bikes disappear down the highway, not in defiance, but in grace. And in that roaring silence, he finally understood what his father meant. Courage isn't in the arrest, it's in the apology, it's in choosing humanity over pride.